Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Monday, January 16th. Hope for everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. Hope for everybody had a good weekend. It was a phenomenal weekend in sports. Had a ton on. You had football all weekend long. 2 games on Saturday, 3 games yesterday, and then tonight it will wrap up Wild Card Weekend with the Cowboys and the Buccaneers down in Tampa. Dak Prescott, Tom Brady. A lot in the line on that game. You know, if the Cowboys lose, what is Mike McCarthy's future? As we all know, Jerry Jones is impatient. Will he bring in Sean Payton if the Cowboys have another early playoff exit, despite McCarthy having back-to-back 12-win seasons? What is Tom Brady's future? He'll hit the whole open market this offseason. He's a free agent. Do they bring him back? What's the coaching future of Todd Bowles? A lot on the line tonight in that game. It's only a wild card game, but a lot on the line in terms of the future of both those teams, as a lot of things could go in a different direction. If the Cowboys lose, what is Mike McCarthy's future? If the Bucs lose, I mean, no matter what happens with the Bucs this playoffs, really, no matter how far they go or if they lose tonight, what is Tom Brady's future is going to be the question at the end of the offseason, no matter what happens with the Buccaneers. Now, obviously, it won't be as glaring of a question if they, go on and win the Super Bowl. But tonight could very well be Brady's not only his last game in a Buccaneers uniform, but potentially his last game in his NFL career. So it'll be interesting. It's definitely an interesting game. A lot of storylines tonight. It was an excellent weekend of football. You also had plenty of college basketball, NBA, and hockey on as well. So we'll recap it all. It is a Football Monday recap show. We'll get to the Giants. We'll get to the rest of the NFL. I also want to get to second topic of the day. I want to get to the Nets, as the Nets yesterday again have a very disappointing performance against the Thunder, as they now fall to 0-2 since Kevin Durant's injury, and they now head out on a West Coast trip starting tomorrow in San Antonio against the Spurs. I want to get to the Nets and why they got to turn this thing around quickly, because Kevin Durant is not coming back anytime soon. He's only been out 2 games. He'll probably be out at least another week or 2. It's potentially up to a month, so he's going to be out for a little bit longer, and this team looks lost without him, and specifically one player in general that has to be better, especially he has been awful in the 2 games without Kevin Durant. We'll get to that and much more surrounding the Nets. And obviously we'll finish things off, get you in a little bit of Knicks. They are in action today. Islanders as well in action tonight. So got the Knicks and the Islanders. Knicks a little afternoon basketball, 3 Eastern tip at MSG. And the Rangers, after a tough loss yesterday against the Canadiens 2-1, they will get the day off here today. So we shall see how all that plays out. Or actually, the Rangers will play today. I apologize. It's back-to-back Rangers, Islanders today. So Rangers, Blue Jackets tonight. Rangers in Columbus. Islanders home against the Capitals. Knicks at home against the Raptors. And the Nets, out of the 4 of those, will be the only team today with the day off, as they will head out to San Antonio to play the Spurs tomorrow. So, with all that being said, this is the Bubbs on Sports podcast, and let's get into it. So, we're going to start things off today. We'll get to the rest of the NFL, obviously. Well, first of all, before we start anything, I went 5-0 this weekend on my game picks. So, I nailed the picks this weekend. Took the Niners, Jaguars, Giants, Bengals, and the Bills. Nailed them. They could have went different ways. I mean, the Ravens almost beat the Bengals. The Dolphins made it close. If the Jaguars don't make that comeback, the Giants game was close as well. So, really, those picks could have easily went the other way. It could have easily been a 1-4 weekend opposed to a 5-0 weekend. So I went 5-0, and obviously tonight, I told you on Friday, I'm picking the Cowboys tonight, but went 5-0. So overall in the season, 175 and 101 overall, and hitting 180 seems more likely here after this weekend and after a very successful 5 games, so far 5 games into Wildcard Weekend. Picked all the games correct. But we'll get to the rest of the games. We got to start off today with the New York Giants as they go on the road, beat the Minnesota Vikings 31-24 to get to the NFC Divisional Round. They will face the Eagles Saturday night in Philly, Lincoln Financial Field. For the winner, goes to the NFC Championship game to face either the Niners and either the Cowboys and the Bucs. Whoever wins that game will face the Niners in San Francisco next weekend as well. So the Giants, to put into perspective, after a win yesterday, are 1 game away from being in a win-and-in situation to go to the Super Bowl. And it's crazy where this team is at, considering what the expectations were going into this season. Going into this year, and we've talked about this a lot. I've talked about this a lot throughout the season. Obviously, every Monday coming on here and talking about both the Jets and the Giants and recapping their games. At the beginning of this season, what the New York Giants, the expectation was similar to what the Jets were last year. And that was probably win 5-6 games, lay the foundation, see what pieces fit, see what pieces don't fit. There's not a ton of talent on the roster. It was going to be a free pass for Dable, unless if things really went wrong, because, again, Dable, it's his first year. Shane, they picked up a terrible roster. And the fact that they have taken this team from the beginning of the season, the expectation was win 5-6 games, then next year you should be in the conversation after they get a full off season. They'll have a lot of cap space. They can draft. They can spend money. Who even know, you went into this year, a couple things, you went into this season not knowing what your future really was at many positions, specifically the quarterback. And let me tell you, the quarterback has been decided. Daniel Jones is the guy for the New York Giants, and Daniel Jones is going to be the guy for the New York Giants for a very long time. He is going to get a big extension this offseason. He is the guy. He is the franchise quarterback for the New York Giants. They got him the right coach. They put him into the right offensive system, and he is doing this with very little talent around him. Daniel Jones went on the road in Minnesota and just beat the Vikings without having a legit number one receiver. Credit to him. And again, I've said it all year long, but I can't give enough credit to Brian Dable for what he has done with this team. He has taken this team, again, this roster was a mess to start the year because Gettleman left it in. I mean, there was no salary cap. There was no money. The draft picks weren't, they were a train wreck in terms of their salary cap situation. That was because of Dave Gettleman. And Dable and Joe Shane have come in here and taken this team. They are now one win away from being in a win and in situation. They are now one win away from getting to the NFC Championship game. Let that sink in for a second. This New York Giants team, with really Daniel Jones and Saquon are their two best weapons. They don't have many receivers. I'll get to Isaiah Hodgins. He's been a phenomenal pickup, and that's, again, a credit to Dable and Shane. He was available. They got him, picked him up, knows the scheme. He was in Buffalo, knows the system, brought him in, and he has been Daniel Jones' best target, and he might actually have a future with the New York Giants. Not as a number one, but he could definitely play a role next season. He's been very, very good. But they have taken this team, and to get to where they are now, they just went on the road and beat the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, a phenomenal job by this coaching staff. On Saturday, after watching the Jags win on Saturday, I was thinking, you know what? Doug Peterson might be the coach of the year. Took his team down 27-0, made him come back. But after seeing yesterday and seeing what the Giants have done all year, the conversation is over. Brian Dable's the coach of the year. Daniel Jones is your franchise quarterback. And Saquon Barkley also needs to be back as well, as he had another big day yesterday, 2 big rushing touchdowns, along with 53 yards and a big 28-yard run that was pivotal in the game. So Giants get the win, defeat the Vikings. And the Vikings, from their side of things, the perspective is this year, the Vikings have issues. The Vikings have problems. They overachieved big time. They were not as good as many of us expected. They do, and I'll tell you what, they gotta figure the defense has got to be figured out a little bit. They've got weapons on offense. They're a team that needs to find ways. They need to get off to quick starts. There's only, and I've said it all year long about the Vikings, there's only it's eventually gonna die out. These late game comebacks are eventually not gonna work. They're just not. You could come back 33-0 against the Colts. That's great. But eventually, you're just not going to be – you're going to have to get off to leads. Eventually, you're going to have to set the tone in games. I mean, the Vikings this season, out of their 13 wins, I think 11 of them had to come back in. So it's crazy to think that the Vikings, if 6 of those games went a different direction, they might have been a 10-loss team this year. So the Vikings head into an interesting offseason because they won 13 games, but the way they won those 13 games, and again, a win's a win, and I understand that, but the way they won those 13 games, you kind of scratch your head and you're like, interesting. They won, but they were, they had to come back in a lot of those games. they have a lot of talent on offense. The defense, Harrison Smith, guys like that, Patrick Peterson, they're older. They're not quite the same players. Donnell Hunter's very good. They've got some pieces. Zadarius Smith, they've got some guys on defense, but their defense isn't very good. I remember, getting my preview show ready for the Jets-Vikings game, and I remember looking at the numbers on the defensive side of the ball. They weren't very good. So they got to shore up their defense a little bit, but this is really all about the New York Giants. And Daniel Jones yesterday was phenomenal, 24 of 35. 301 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, 3 sacks. He got sacked 3 times, but had a QBR of 81.2. He went on the road, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, played an almost perfect game, and had a QBR of 81.2. I mean, he had one of the best. I mean, the Giants, and I've said this. I was talking about this yesterday. The Giants, there are a lot of teams this weekend and like wild card weekend, and I'll get to the rest of the games here in a little bit. There is not that one team other than the Niners where I can right now say, oh man, they look legit. Like the Bengals barely beat Tyler Huntley. The Bengals would have lost that game if they had Lamar Jackson. The Bills almost lost to Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins in Buffalo. That was a game. You don't really know how to feel about the Jaguars. They came back, but it's like they were down, they came back in the game, but a lot of it was bad coaching on the Chargers. You got to give credit to the Jaguars, but a lot of it was the Chargers and Brandon Staley terrible coaching. And then, you feel good about the Niners. We'll see what happens tonight. But you look around the league, you look at around the teams that won. The Bills, it's like, they won. That's great. But only by 3 to Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins at home. The Bengals, they barely beat Tyler Huntley. After a week prior, they won by 11. I know it wasn't Tyler Huntley out there. It was the third-string quarterback or wherever they are at this point. But, I mean, there was some interesting results this weekend. And although the teams that I think most of us expected to win, they didn't win in the way we expected. The Giants had one of the more complete, all-around, good, solid victories of the weekend where they looked legit. They did. And I will tell you this. And I'm happy for the Giants. I'm happy for Dable. As much as their fans can sometimes be annoying, the Giants fans deserve this. They've gone through a lot of pain the past couple seasons, from the McAdoo days to Pat Shurmur to the Joe Judge days. I mean, they failed on 3 coaches. A year ago, basically a year ago, they were running the two quarterback sneaks and they're inside their own 10 so they could set up a punt. Joe Judge was atrocious. And to come out and win 9 games like this, I mean, Dable's just football written all over him. But I will tell you this, and this is right now. It's Monday. I'll obviously have my picks and everything on Friday, so my feelings could change. But right now, it is not crazy. After watching that Giants game yesterday, and again, out of the entire weekend, the Giants looked at like one of the more complete football teams in the NFL yesterday. Out of the playoffs, they looked like one of the more just complete overall teams. And that's crazy to say considering we all watched the Bengals and the Bills and teams like that yesterday. Giants looked really good. Really good. So it's not crazy. I'm saying it again. It is not crazy to say. I don't think it's crazy to sit here and say the Giants next week can beat Philly. I don't. They were in the game against the Eagles with a bunch of their backups. And the Eagles were playing their starters because they were still playing for something. They were in that game on the road. A healthy Giants team now, coming off of a big win, got momentum. They've already, in one tough road environment, they understand now. They've got experience. I don't think it's crazy to say the New York Giants could beat the Eagles next weekend. I really don't. And I think the line so far opens up as 7-point favorites. The Eagles are, which doesn't surprise me, obviously. You're not going to make them underdogs at home. But the Giants get a big opportunity against their rivals in Philly. Just some other numbers from the game. Isaiah Hodgins was phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. Had one big first down catch. He had a touchdown, 8 catches, 105 yards, and 1 touchdown. And I was watching the game yesterday, and you're sitting there talking and stuff. And I was sitting there and thinking, what could the Giants receiving core look like next season? I know that's the last thing on Giants fans' minds right now. You're getting ready for the divisional round. You're pumped up. You just, you don't want this season to end right now, and I understand that. But Isaiah Hodgins is a guy, out of all these pieces, he's a guy, he might have just played himself into a a roster spot next season, Isaiah Hodgins has. He's, rookie, cheap acquisition. He's young. Him and Daniel Jones have got some. They've got some connections. They really do. And he has. They've definitely got. They definitely feel. It feels like Daniel Jones and Isaiah Hodgins have the strongest connection between the two of them. They really do. I mean, man, oh man, he has been phenomenal. And from his days, obviously, in the Bills to now with the Giants, he's young, only 24 years old, knows the system. He just seems comfortable. Daniel Jones, it seems like they've got a bond, they've got a connection. Again, I'm not saying Isaiah Hodgins has got to be your number one receiver next season, but he should definitely be on the roster. He should definitely be maybe a number 2. I mean, he's looked really good. And maybe you found, again, this isn't crazy to say either. You could sit here and talk all about, it's just, he's just playing well now and all that stuff. But it's possible the Giants found just a diamond in the rough. It's possible they found a hidden gem. It really is possible. Obviously, Dable saw something, Bill's system. He obviously saw something, him and Joe Shane, to bring him here. They got him here, and now you see what he's doing. He's been phenomenal. Excellent game yesterday. A couple big catches, including the touchdown. Darius Slayton, I mean, oh my Lord, was that a bad drop on third down. That drop right there gave a lot of Giants fans unnecessary stress. Because if he catches that ball, I would assume most likely he's probably getting to the first down marker. But he ended up dropping it. He would have been close. I mean, if he didn't get to the first down marker, he probably would have been a yard or two short, which would have made an interesting decision for the Giants. But to drop that ball was just tough. Richie James, I will tell you, hasn't been bad. I mean, he's been not bad, slot across the middle. He hasn't been terrible. He has some drops, he does. But he didn't play terrible yesterday, a couple catches. Isaiah Hodgins is just really blowing me away. And I'll tell you what, Daniel Bellinger, not a big name, but he had a touchdown yesterday, good in the red zone. I liked what I've seen out of him this season. He's kind of been an under the radar. He's been okay at the tight end position. Again, I don't know if so much he's the future there, but him and Daniel Jones have had a nice connection. And somebody else, too. Everyone's talking about Daniel Jones and the offense, and rightfully so. They put up 31 points. This team has been known for these low-scoring 2017-type games. To go on the road, throw for 300 yards, and put up 31 points is amazing. But something that isn't being talked about much is Adoree Jackson. He was phenomenal yesterday. I said it on Friday. Every Giants fan's been saying it. Everybody in the NFL has been saying it. The New York Giants have to contain Justin Jefferson because the last time they played them, they weren't able to contain him. And yesterday, Adoree Jackson did just that. He did everything he needed to do. Justin Jefferson got held to 7 catches for 47 yards. The real killer yesterday was TJ Hawkinson. And that was, he had 129 yards, no touchdowns, but he had a big day. And there was one play where McKinney picked up Jefferson underneath, Hawkinson got it, and he had like a big 20-yard play on like a 3rd down and 2. There was a couple times where I thought that Wink was going to blitz. There was a couple times where Wink threw a lot of he were only rushing 4 guys, and they, linebackers and anybody else backed up and played in coverage. And I thought Wink was going to blitz a little bit more, specifically on a couple of the 3rd down plays, but he trusted the coverage. And I'll tell you what, Adoree Jackson yesterday, because the Giants, I don't know, this is just me from what I saw. Again, I could be wrong. I don't have any numbers to back this up. This is kind of just what I thought, what I was watching and what I thought I was seeing. I thought they put a lot of stress on their corners yesterday because they blitzed. They definitely blitzed. I'm not saying they never blitzed, but there was definitely some times where I felt that Wink would have blitzed and they only sent 4 and they put more stress on their secondary, and Adoree Jackson did a phenomenal job. I mean, Justin Jefferson was not existent yesterday. He had 7 catches for 47 yards. And I believe Adoree Jackson only held him to like 30-something yards. I think they put somebody else on him. Cordell Flott also played very well. Very big day for the Giants secondary. It really was. We talk about McKinney played pretty solid, as I mentioned. It was a good day, and Adoree Jackson just was great. I mean, he, again, coming off of injury, too. He hasn't played in a little while. To come back and have to cover Justin Jefferson in your first game back in the playoffs and to do what he did, phenomenal job yesterday by Adoree Jackson, and he deserves a ton of credit after what he did yesterday, for sure. Again, they weren't able to get much pressure, which is why, again, Kirk Cousins threw the ball 39 times yesterday for 273 yards. The secondary for the Giants, McKinney, Cordell Flott, Adoree Jackson, phenomenal job. Credit where credit's due. They did great yesterday. against against the league's best. I mean, Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, is the best receiver in football. They shut him down yesterday. So they did phenomenal. And I'll tell you what, if they can do what they did again against Justin Jefferson, you feel good about your chances holding down A.J. Brown. You do against Philly. Now, Jalen Hurts is a little bit more mobile, so you're going to have to watch out for that, and that's why I wonder if they might blitz a little bit more there. But man, oh man, the secondary was phenomenal yesterday for the New York Giants. And they didn't get any sacks either. They didn't sack Cousins. There wasn't a ton of pressure on Kirk Cousins. Now, there was that one terrible roughing the passer call. I don't know how. The roughing the passer penalties in the NFL are atrocious. They are terrible. You can't even touch the quarterback anymore in the NFL. It's really sad. It really is. Anything now. Like, every time, and I remember this, watching this, and especially, anytime there's a sack now, you have to wait a good 3-4 seconds as a fan to celebrate because you just never know if they're going to call a dumb roughing the passer penalty. You never. Now, again, certain moments, there is going to be certain times where there's roughing the passer. If you pick the guy up and throw him down, that's one thing. Or if you hit him after the play, if he throws the ball and a good 3 seconds later you come in and nail him, that's one thing. But, I mean, yesterday it was ridiculous. I believe Kirk Cousins got the throw off, too. It wasn't even like he got sacked, and they're all roughing the passer. And I know he hit him in the helmet, but this is the NFL. This is the NFL. It's physical. You can't tell me, a little hit on Kirk Cousins' head is really going to hurt him. I mean, it was a terrible, terrible penalty. That was awful. And then one other thing I want to say. The Vikings, that play call on 4th down and 8, where McKinney, who, by the way, made an excellent open field tackle, that play call on 4th down and 8 was atrocious. You're throwing a 4-yard check down type route to your tight end, TJ Hawkinson. You need 8 yards and you're throwing a 4-yard pass. That was terrible. That was an awful, awful play call. That was really bad. And I go back to the Buffalo game. Everyone could say, oh, well, you need 8 yards, make a guy miss, throw it 5 yards, make him miss, lower his shoulder, get 3 yards, right? But I go back to that Buffalo game when the Vikings had that crazy comeback. It was like a 4th down and 17. And Kirk Cousins threw it up, and Justin Jefferson somehow came down with the one-handed catch. I'm not saying that you got to throw it 40 yards downfield to Justin Jefferson when you only need 8 yards. But I would have targeted Justin Jefferson there. It was such a quick play. It was almost like that was his first read boom throw. It was such a quick play. It was a quick boom out to the sideline, 4-yard route, and he got nailed. I did not understand that play call. I did not understand it. He didn't even give the time. It wasn't like Kirk Cousins got the ball, was looking downfield, was running all over the place, nobody was open, and then he just had to check him down instead of taking a sack. It was a quick boom throw, and he got tackled. It just didn't make any sense. I would throw the ball in double coverage to Justin Jefferson. It gives you a better chance than giving the ball to your tight end against a safety, and he's got to get 5-6 yards. It doesn't make sense. It would be one thing if it was a running back, and he's quick, and he can make a man miss, but you're throwing it to your tight end 4 yards short of the marker? That made no sense to me. That didn't make any sense. So, good for the Giants, but that was a terrible call by the Vikings. So, all in all, though, a very good win by the New York Giants. They move on to the divisional round. What a season it's been. And again, crazy as it sounds, I think the Giants have a very good chance of beating the Eagles. I really do. I really do. They looked like one of the more complete teams yesterday of all the teams in the playoffs. They really did. So, great win for the Giants. Great win for Dable. They found their quarterback. They got their running back. They got their coach. They got their GM. They got a lot. The Giants are building something special for sure. And this playoff experience, too, however it happens. If they lose next weekend and the season ends, however it all plays out, this playoff experience is very valuable for these players. It really is. It's very valuable. For Daniel Jones, Saquon, these guys have never been here before. To be able to get this experience is extremely, extremely valuable. So, credit to the Giants. Great job. And now they move on and play the Eagles 8:15 Saturday on Fox. Man, that's going to be a big, big game. That play's going to be roaring. Eagles, Giants, Philly, New York. It's going to be a fun week leading up to it, I will tell you that. And I want to just say this one more time. and I don't want to try to gear this to the Jets, but watching the game yesterday, again, seeing the Giants, seeing your crosstown rivals, seeing the other team in New York go on and win a playoff game, this yesterday to me, again, just shows, I don't know how to word it, but yesterday to me puts more pressure on the New York Jets that they have to be in the playoffs next season. And yesterday is a pure example. Rebuilds in the NFL, they don't take 5-6 years. They don't. Rebuilds in the NFL now take a year or two. So watching yesterday's game and hearing all the reactions all over sports apps and the radio and all that stuff, yesterday's game, again, just as a Jets fan, it again tells me, and the Jets organization again needs to realize this. Next year it's playoffs or bust. When you see your crosstown rival, the other team in New York, making the playoffs, winning a playoff round, doing all that with less talent than you have, let's be honest here, the Jets have a more talented roster than the Giants. Now, the one thing the Giants have over the Jets, they have a lot of things over the Giants. There are a lot of things over the Jets. They have coaching, they have a GM, they have a quarterback, they have an offensive coordinator. They have a lot. The Jets have a lot of problems. They always have a lot of problems. We all know that. But yet next year, bottom line is Jets got to make the playoffs. Because, again, these rebuilds, they don't take 4 years. They don't. Giants, in his first year, Brian Dable, with not much talent on the roster, you went into the season with an unknown at quarterback, an unknown at the entire roster was really an unknown. To take this team to the playoffs and now get your answer at quarterback, it's Daniel Jones. Next season and the years on, this Giants team is going to be a legit threat in the NFC for a very long time. They really are. You look at the Bengals. They're another example. Joe Burrow, first season, blew out his knee, right? Comes back, boom. They go on to the Super Bowl. And look at them now. They're getting ready to play a divisional round. Same thing with the Chargers, right? Herbert's, his first 2 seasons? Okay, they didn't go very well. This year got to the playoffs. Now, I know they blew the lead, but the fact is they still got there. 3rd year. Rebuilds don't take much. Rebuilds now, it's a quick 2-year process. Boom. By year 3, if you're not in the playoffs already, year 3, you have to be in the playoffs. And the Jets are entering year 3 of the Saleh and Douglas pairing. I know Douglas has been here prior to Saleh, obviously. But they're entering year 3 with Saleh. You got to make the playoffs, especially after seeing what the Giants are doing. You have to. So that's just kind of the way I wanted to end it. But congrats to the Giants. They move on. And they now will face up against their division rivals in the Philadelphia Eagles. So now we move on to the rest of the games. And as I mentioned, it was an interesting weekend. So we'll start off with the Niners Seahawks. Niners get the win 41-23. This game was close early. This was an interesting game because the Niners get off to a quick 10-0 lead, right? And, they get off quick lead early on. They score 10-0. They're up. Christian McCaffrey had a big, had the touchdown. He had a couple big runs. He was, Christian McCaffrey had a very good game. So they start out 10-0, and you're thinking to yourself, all right, the Niners are going to blow them out. This is what we expected, 10-0. And then all of a sudden, Kenneth Walker scores a touchdown. Seahawks drive, get a score, 10-7. Niners end up getting a field goal, 13-7. Then the Seahawks end up scoring a touchdown, makes it 14-13. DK, big 50-yard touchdown from Geno. And you're like, my, oh my, here we go. 17-16. The Seahawks went into this game at halftime winning 17-16. And then sure enough, to start the second half, it was all Seahawks. Brock Purdy punches it in on a quarterback sneak. They take a lead 23-17. Elijah Mitchell then gets a score. Deebo Samuel then had a big 74-yard touchdown from Brock Purdy. He scores. And at that point, Metcalf scored late, but it didn't matter. The game was over. So this was an interesting game because the Niners got off to a quick start. And then, boom, second half, whatever was said. And again, and Brock Purdy deserves a lot of credit, but Shanahan as well. Kyle Shanahan, they were down 17-16 going into the second half. Whatever was said in that locker room, whatever adjustments were made, that is good coaching right there. That is good coaching. And I'll tell you what, Pete Carroll got out-coached in the second half. Not in terms of decision-making and stuff, but in terms of the way his team came out and the way the Niners came out. Now, I don't want to crush Carroll too much. Some of it could have just been, we kind of all expected this to happen. Niners just kind of got off to a slow start. Purdy, first playoff game, okay. A little bit of rustiness early on. I mean, they got off to a quick start, but then the Niners came back in the second quarter. But whatever was said in that locker room, whatever adjustments were made by Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff, got to give credit where credit's due, because they came out in the second half and to put up, whatever it was, 24 points they scored, right? Because they were 25, I guess, right? Because it was 17-16. To put up that much and, go into halftime down one to come out and win 41-23, excellent win for the Niners. And the Brock Purdy story continues. I'll tell you what, I'm rooting for him. 332 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mystery relevant. 332 yards and 3 touchdowns. Let that sink in for a second. That stat line looks like that would be a Josh Allen or Joe Burrow stat line. That is Brock Purdy. Last pick in the draft from Iowa State. At home, first playoff game. Throws for 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns, and gets the win 41-23. He also added a rushing touchdown, so 4 total touchdowns. Deebo Samuel had a big day, 6 catches, 133 yards. Christian McCaffrey had a big day. He had that big one, that really long 68-yard run that he broke out, early in the game. I mean, it's just this Niners team is, when they get going, this Niners team is very good. I mean, they're insane. You saw that in the second half. That second half is what the Niners can do. When they get rolling, they are a very, very good team. And that was definitely evident yesterday. Ayuk also had a big day, 3 catches, 73 yards. He spread the ball around. He really did. He's gotten Ayuk involved, Samuel involved. Purdy is making plays. He really is. And it's just an incredible story. It really is. So what a win for the Niners. They get the job done. This next game here, I don't even really know how to describe it. I mean, the Chargers get the win over the Jaguars get the win over the Chargers. I gotta admit, I stopped watching this game at halftime. I had to watch the highlights to figure out all what happened in the second half. 27-0, Chargers over the Jaguars. Jaguars get a score to end the first half. And you're like, all right, it makes it somewhat interesting, 27-7. Because the Chargers got the ball to start the half. But you're like, okay, if they can get a stop, get the ball back, score, make it a 2-score game, it at least kept you a little bit engaged. Because, again, down 27-0 going into halftime, it would have been done. But they score to end the half. And I'll tell you what, as much as you look at the second half and you look at the way the Chargers really blew the game, seeing what the Chargers did in the second half reminded me of what the Falcons did in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Up 28-3, went into the second half, and they kept throwing the ball, and they never ran it. And that happened Saturday with the Chargers. That you have Austin Eckler, one of the best running backs in football, and you run the ball 7 times in the second half. 7 times. And, Austin Eckler ended the game with only 13 carries for 35 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, but in terms of they only ran the ball 23 times. They threw the ball 43 times. When you go into halftime up by 20, you should not only come out of the game and run the ball 23 times. That should not be it. That is ridiculous. They did not run, they were incompletions. There was even sometimes, too, where one of Herbert's strengths is he runs out of the pocket. He's very good on the run. They were not moving him out of the pocket, keeping him in the pocket. Brandon Staley and the Chargers, they called that game like they were losing 27-7 in the second half, opposed to winning by 20 in the second half. There was even a couple times where Herbert kind of made a business decision and said, look, I'm not throwing this, I'm running it. There was a couple times because I think everybody on the Chargers sideline was perplexed that you have Austin Eckler in the backfield and you're not running the football. It made 0 sense to me. So that was really bad, really bad. Terrible coaching, and I'll tell you what, I'm surprised Brandon Staley still has a job today. You blow a 27-0 lead, I mean, that's bad. That's really bad. When the Jaguars had Trevor Lawrence threw a very weird game because it really was the tale of two halves. Because Trevor Lawrence throws 4 interceptions in the first half. And obviously, then he comes down in the second half and has 3 touchdowns, no picks. So if you look at his second half numbers, if you didn't, let's just say you don't even watch the game, let's say you didn't even watch the game, and I just give you the numbers of his second half, and you saw that they won 31-30, and it says that he threw 3 touchdowns, you would probably assume he probably went on to throw 5 touchdowns, 400 yards, and maybe had a pick. Instead, he threw 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but in the second half, he threw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a big day. And ETN also had a big day. The 4th down and 1 play call was gutsy to give it to ETN. Everyone thinking that Trevor Lawrence was going to sneak it. They give it to ETN. He had a big run, set him up in the field goal range. Something else that shouldn't go unnoticed here either was the Chargers missed a chip shot. They missed a chip shot, which was really, really bad. Cameron Dicker, who's been very good all season, he missed a chip shot field goal. It was only like I believe it was only like a 30, 35-yarder. I don't know exactly what it was. His long for the day was 50, but he missed it. He makes that kick. It's a 33-28 game with the Jaguars, driving, as opposed to a 30-28 with the Jaguars can just kick it and win it, which they ended up doing. So that kick also impacted a lot. And I know Brandon Staley's play calling in the second half, but missing that kick was really bad, especially because that was the drive, I believe, where the Chargers were. It was 3rd down and 10, and the Chargers that was one of the plays where the Justin Herbert ran and got the first down. It was like a 3rd down and 10. He ran and got the first down. They started to drive a little bit, and it's like, okay, the Jaguars defense is struggling now, but that was not the case. They missed the field goal. That was really bad miss. Chip shot. It was one thing if it was like a 55-yarder, but I recall it only being 35, maybe 40 yards. He should have made that. He ended up missing it, which definitely comes back to hurt him. And the Chargers lose. I'm shocked they lost considering the way they started, but in big picture, this Jaguars team's pretty good, and they'll get the Chiefs on the road next weekend, which should be very interesting. I'm hoping that's a game. I really am. Is this Chargers team going to be the comeback kids, or is that what they're going to do now? Are they going to fall down early in games, and are they going to come back? We'll see. But the Jaguars, I should say, not Chargers, but the Jaguars get the win, 31-30 at home. And you hope, if you're a Jaguars fan, and I hope this too, because I want to see, obviously, good divisional round games. I hope not Justin Herbert. I hope Trevor Lawrence, his struggles in the first half were just playoff jitters, first time in the postseason, and the second half he was more comfortable, just was kind of doing what he always does. That's what I hope. I hope it wasn't him just going through a slump. I hope that was just playoff jitters, because now he's got a playoff game under his belt. They got the win. The Jaguars had no business winning that game, but they did, and they move on to play Kansas City. All right, as for yesterday's games, Bills-Dolphins was wild. Wild game. The Bills get the win 34-31. This game was very similar to the Niners-Seahawks game, except this game ended up coming out to be very close. And, you're sitting there watching the game, and you see the Bills get off to a 17-0 lead. Niners got off to a 10-0 lead. And then all of a sudden, here comes Miami. They kick 3 field goals, get it to a 1-score game, and all of a sudden, the interception by Josh Allen early on definitely hurt him. And all of a sudden, they score before the half. Bills go down. Again, similar to the missed field goal in the Chargers game. Something that doesn't get talked about much in this Bills game was they had the ball with only 33 seconds left in the half. They could have easily I know they had, 2 timeouts. They could have easily just ran it a couple times, went into halftime, don't want to make any stupid mistakes, don't want to give Miami any more momentum. They could have easily done that. Instead, 33 seconds, 2 timeouts, they drove down the field. Diggs almost had that touchdown, that incredible one-handed catch. They ended up not ruling it a score, and they got a field goal. They ended up going to halftime up 3. The difference in this game was 3. So that drive before the half, again, grand scheme of things, because the Dolphins ended up coming out, and they had that fumble recovery to start, which ended up making it a 24-20 game. But that drive before the half really changed this game, because that's the difference of 3 points right there. Bills ended up winning by 3. So that's something definitely to take away from this game. But there was that fumble. Allen had the fumble to start the half. Dolphins get the ball, strip 6. They get in 24-20 all of a sudden. Then the Bills go downfield, nice drive, score. Beasley gets the touchdown, and then Gabe Davis gets a touchdown. And this is where you started to feel like this is the Niners game all over again. They were up 10 going into the fourth quarter, and you're like, okay, Bills are going to find a way to win this game. They're going to find a way to win this game 38 or 40 to 24. And sure enough, that wasn't the case. The Dolphins, who almost had another fumble of Allen, they ended up going down, scoring, nice drive. They score, make it a 3-point game. And I will tell you this. Look, I see both sides of it. The people criticizing Mike McDaniel, I don't think he's a very good coach. He did take his team, though, in all fairness, on the road into Buffalo, and they made it a game. I mean, they were driving. They had, it really came down to one play. It was that fourth down play. But what really destroys, you could take, if the Dolphins would have got stuffed on 4th down and 1, that delay a game on 4th down and 1 might have been the worst just delay a game you could have ever taken. 4th down and 1. You're in a big game. You have to convert. And you take a delay a game on 4th down and 1. That's terrible. And then Josh McDaniel, I believe his explanation in his press conference was they thought it was a first down. So then it took a little bit more time. They had to figure out what they wanted. They were going to call a first down play, but it was only 4th down and 1. So they weren't even ready. So it was a terrible, terrible play call. Terrible play call by the McDaniel. Well, not even play call. Terrible awareness by Mike McDaniel to have a delay a game on 4th down and 1, make it 4th down and 6. That was brutal. They ended up missing it. I thought Skylar Thompson, look, he was Skylar Thompson. I mean, what did you expect? He wasn't going to go out there, throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. I thought he did okay. His receivers didn't help him. They had a couple drops, but there was a couple really, really bad throws early on in that game. In the end, he went 18 of 45 for 220 yards. He had a touchdown. He had 2 picks. He only had a QBR of 22.6. He had a couple really bad throws. The Bills also had a couple really, really nice plays defensively. There was a really nice throw that he had to Waddle that Trey White got his hand in. Teron Johnson also had a really good play on Waddle. Hill had a couple drops. Waddle specifically, early in the game, had a really bad drop. Wide open, terrible drop. Would have put them into Bills territory around the 30, 25-yard line. And who knows what happens if they go down and score that drive, however it plays out. But I look at this game, like you look at the numbers, Watt only had 3 catches, got targeted 7 times. Hill had 15 targets, only got catches. He only had 7 catches. So his receivers didn't help him out. It was a combination of everything. He made some bad throws. His receivers didn't help him out. And there was also just some really good plays by the Bills defense. The interception early on was really bad. He was trying to get Hill, and then the defender just was running right there and he picked it off. So Bills get the win, but wasn't as easy as many expected. And then the Bengals got the win yesterday over the Ravens, 24-17. Big win for them. I'll tell you what, though. This is one of these games where, as a Bengals fan, you don't really know how to feel. Like, they got the win, which is great. But, man, oh, man, if Lamar Jackson was playing this game, the Ravens probably go on and win. Tyler Huntley was basically throwing ducks the entire game, and they somehow were working. He ended up throwing 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a pick, 74 QBR. He played pretty well. I don't know how he was playing well, but he played pretty well. Obviously, the fumble at the 1-yard line was brutal. J.K. Dobbins questioning coaching. Were they going to sneak it there? Look, I don't fully disagree with the quarterback sneak call. You're on the 1-yard line. They quarterback sneaked. It was a good play by the defense. They punched the ball out. Could Tyler Huntley maybe have been a little bit more secure? Maybe. If you want to get really critical, maybe. But he was trying to put the ball over. I mean, I think what really, I don't know. I mean, and then the clock management, I don't fully disagree with. I think a lot of people, questioning it. What really hurt this game was that fumble. That fumble killed it. The Ravens actually last chance of the game, they almost caught the big play on 4th down. They almost caught that. It was deflected, and the receiver was so close to catching it. But that fumble really, really killed them. I'll tell you this, though. The Bengals, it's interesting. This was an interesting weekend in football because all these games, like the Bengals got off to that quick 9-0 lead. The Jamar Chase had the touchdown. They did miss the extra point. It was like, all right, they're up 2 scores early. It's like this game feels like it's going to be a blowout. And all of a sudden, here comes the Ravens. They go into halftime with a lead. And it's just like the Bengals were clearly at times the better team in the first half, but somehow the Ravens were winning. some of the games were weird. They really were. Like the Dolphins, like and I'll tell you what, Josh Allen, he's got to limit the turnovers. The turnovers are a problem. From the fumble to the 2 interceptions he had, he's got to limit the turnovers. Next weekend against Cincinnati and however far they go, if they have to play Kansas City or Jacksonville, if they win next weekend, however the rest of the postseason plays out for them, he's got to limit the turnovers. He makes too many dumb mistakes, which is kind of what put the Dolphins back in the game. But this game here, it's just so weird because they were winning 9-0. You felt good if you're a Bengals fan, and it's like, here comes the Ravens. And they didn't, it was ugly, but they found a way to stay in the game. The fumble killed them, though. It did. That was it. But now the Ravens go into an offseason with a big question. What do you do with Lamar Jackson? Do they franchise tag him? Do they sign him to a long-term deal? I know there's a lot of questioning around him not being at the game, but at the end of the day, supposedly that's just the team protocol that if you're injured, you don't have to travel. So I don't read much into that. Is he a Jet next year? Who knows? I don't think so. I think that's a pipe dream. I think Derek Carr is the most realistic option right now. That if I had to bet right now, I'd assume Derek Carr is probably going to be the Jet quarterback, which I'm fine with. I like Derek Carr a lot. I actually talked a little bit about that in my Jets mailbag episode if you're interested. But a big offseason for the Ravens. Really is. They got to get better receivers. They had some injuries. They were hurting. I thought Huntley played well, though. I mean, all things considered, I thought he played well. I know a lot of people are going to look at that fumble and say, man, how do you fumble the ball away? He played well. I mean, they went on the road, playoff environment, Cincinnati, playoff game. They were down early, and the game came down to one play. It was the fumble. And also, in the final play of the game, he heaved that ball up. It was close. I mean, it was an inch. If that ball broke, if that receiver was able to, if that ball was like a little higher up, receiver would have got it. So, interesting game. But I'll tell you what, the Bengals-Bills game's very interesting because they both almost lost to, the Bills almost lost to a third string, and the Bengals almost lost to a second string. So, something's, I don't know if it was, kind of taking their opponent a little lightly, Bills getting a little too comfortable early on. Also the Bengals got off to a nice early start. A touchdown to Jamar Chase, got off to a 9-0 lead. Bills got off to a 17-0 lead. I don't know if it got a little too comfortable after their early starts. But the Bills and the Bengals yesterday, who will now play each other up in Buffalo, Orchard Park. Interesting game, as they both almost lost to two teams that you would think they would have blown out. So interesting weekend there. But tonight, Cowboys-Buccaneers will wrap it up, 8:15, ABC and ESPN. You heard my game pick. I forget the exact score, but I got the Cowboys winning. So I'll take the Cowboys tonight. And looking to go 6-0 on my picks, which I said I would love. But I was aiming for about 4-2 would be like a realistic goal. But to go 6-0 on the picks would be pretty good. So we'll see what happens tonight with the Cowboys. So now we shift our focus here to close things out with a little bit of basketball. As Kevin Durant obviously went down against Miami with the knee injury. And we were all kind of saying as Nets fans, hoping that just find a way to keep your head above water over these next 2-3 weeks or month or however long he's out. Find a way to just win games, play 500 to a little bit of above 500 basketball. And if you can do that, you'll stay within the top 4, top 3 in the East, and you feel good about your chances moving forward. Well, right now, the Brooklyn Nets are doing the exact opposite of that. And look, I don't want to sit here and sound like I am panicking as a Net fan, because they lost 2 straight, but they were 2 very disappointing losses at home. You got a Celtics team on a second half of a back-to-back. It was a tough loss. It's a good team, but they could have won that game, and they would have won that game with Kevin Durant. And watching yesterday's game against the Thunder, again, another situation where, as a Nets fan, you're sitting there and you're saying, if we had Kevin Durant, we would win this game. And that's the most frustrating part. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but what this tells me right now is the other pieces on this team right now are not stepping up. Now, there are some guys playing well. TJ Warren, he had a good game against Boston. Yesterday, he wasn't great, went 3 of 8, but I thought he was solid. He shot 50% from 3. He was pretty good yesterday. Had an assist, 3 boards. I thought Warren yesterday, specifically against Boston, I thought he played pretty well. Royce O'Neal yesterday, he was okay. Missed some shots, missed some open looks. The biggest frustrating part of yesterday, they missed so many open looks. And that's the problem right now with this Nets team, is they're missing open looks. These last two games, they should have won. The Boston game, they missed looks. They didn't get enough scoring. And yesterday, Joe Harris late. 2 wide open corner threes, missed them. Royce had a missed 3. Kyrie Irving stunk in both these games. They aren't scoring enough. It's frustrating. But there's one player specifically that I mentioned. I will give some credit. Claxton yesterday was phenomenal. He had a double-double in the first half. 17 points, 13 rebounds, shot 70%, up there amongst the league lead in field goal percentage. He had 13 rebounds, all that. I mean, he was phenomenal. Nick Claxton is a great player. He's got to get an extension this offseason. He's our future big man. Excellent at the center spot. His 4th year in the league, I mean, he is just skyrocketing. He really is. And he's in the conversation to be, defensive player of the year. He's definitely in the conversation. Excellent defensively. Double-double yesterday. Big-time rebounder. I mean, he's been phenomenal. Something else to point out about Royce. He had 10 boards yesterday at a double-double. So Royce played pretty well. He's been a nice piece. 33 minutes. Thought he played well. Again, I thought T.J. Warren was solid yesterday. 50% from 3. He had, he only had 9 points. But I thought for 22 minutes, I didn't think he played bad. The 2 players that really stuck out like a sore thumb yesterday was Joe Harris, who was atrocious. And I'll tell you this. Joe Harris is not the same player he once was. And to me, it goes back to the Bucks series, however long it was ago, 2 years ago. I don't like talking about it, but it goes back to that series. That series, he was really bad. And you can make the argument, if he was better in that series, the Nets would have won. And they would have moved on, and whoever knows how far, Eastern Conference Finals, however far they would have gone. But they probably would have moved on in that series. Instead, they lost this in 7 games. Ever since that Bucks series, he missed a ton of time last season due to injury. The majority of the year only played like 10, 12 games. And now this year, he's still not the same guy. And there's moments where he'll go down, like hit 2 threes and the Nets will have like 3 possessions. Harris will go down there and hit like 2 threes. In those 3 possessions, you're like, okay, maybe this is the start of something. And in the rest of the game, he'll miss like 6 threes in a row and go finish 2 of 8, which is basically what happened yesterday. He went 2 of 8 yesterday. And I mean, late in the game, close game, late in the game, missed 2, specifically I remember, 2 wide open corner threes, which just cannot happen. When you're without Kevin Durant and you're struggling to find scoring, you're struggling to find baskets, when you get an open look like that, you have to capitalize. When you get 2 open looks like that, you have to capitalize. He wasn't good yesterday either. But we all talk about Kyrie Irving. He's got to be better. Kyrie Irving has been atrocious in these 2 games against Boston and against the Thunder. And again, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm panicking, acting like the season's over, because I do realize this is without Kevin Durant. But this is so frustrating because these are winnable games that we should be winning. It's not like we're getting outplayed, the other team's more physical, more energy. It's not like that. It's just we're missing open looks and we're not getting enough scoring. But Kyrie Irving against Boston went 9 of 24. 3-11 from three-point range. The Nets obviously lost 109-98. Yesterday, 7 of 20 against the Thunder, 1 of 7 from 3. They obviously lost by 10, 112-102. So 0-2 in these 2 games without Kevin Durant. Kyrie has shot a combined 16 of 44 from the field. That's good for 36.4%, which is not good. 4 of 18 from 3. That's 22.2% three-point percentage in both these games. Kyrie is well below 40% shooting from both 3 and overall field goal percentage. He has not been good. And again, I don't want this to turn into a bash Kyrie session because this is more of a criticism on the team not playing well without Kevin Durant. And I mentioned some pieces that have stepped up. T.J. Warren, I thought, played well. Royce, I thought, played pretty well yesterday. Claxton's been great, especially yesterday. Double-double has been phenomenal all year long. But Kyrie yesterday has shown he's a really good 2. He's not a 1. He's not. He showed that in Boston, too. Kyrie Irving is a really good number 2. He's not a number 1. This team needs Kevin Durant. They do. And these past 2 games, it has shown. And look, again, the season's not over. I don't want to sound like I'm acting like the season's over. The Nets are still the 2 seed. There are 4 games back now. Boston has made some room. It's also because Boston's on a 6-game win streak, so they're hot right now. So they're going to be, increasing their lead. But the Nets are 27-15. It's not like this is a team right now that is in danger of falling below 500. They're still well above 643 win percentage. They've still got room to breathe. But this is a warning. If this continues with the Nets and they continue to struggle and miss open looks and Kyrie continues to play like he's playing and shooting 36.4%, 22% from 3, there's a serious concern that this team could end up falling into a situation where they lose 5 of their next 6 or lose 6 in a row. And all of a sudden you're looking at a team that was once the 2 seed in the East be the 5 or 6 seed in the East. Only 3 games separate the Nets and the 6 seed Knicks right now. Only 3 games. So the Nets got to get their act together. They get a matchup tomorrow night against the Spurs, who are 13-31. You got to win that game. If you lose to the Spurs, now you have some issues. You can't lose to the Spurs, who have won 13 games this season. You then get a Suns team who's been disappointing this year, 21-23. You then get a Jazz team who their early season magic has worn out. They are under 500. You then get a Warriors team who is also below 500, although they got Curry back, so I don't want to sit here and act like the Warriors are a very winnable game. That won't be easy. Then you have the Sixers, who are above 500. The Nets' next 3 games will be below teams below 500. They'll also get the Warriors under 500. Well, possibly they'll get the Warriors under 500. But I don't want to sit here and act like the Warriors are an easy win with with Steph Curry. I don't want to act like that. That won't be an easy game. Then they get the Sixers on the road, who are obviously right on the Nets' tail right now. They are 4.5 games back. They're only a half game back from the number 2 spot. So Nets tomorrow is a big game. Again, you don't want to act like it's a must win, but tomorrow is a big game. You lose tomorrow and you lose 3 straight and you lose 3 straight games. You lose to a Thunder team who is, let's just tell like it is. The Thunder are not very good. They're 21-23, right? They're not a very good team. Lou Dort going down and scoring the perimeter defense. There was a stretch there where the Thunder went down 4 straight possessions. They had like 4 threes. They scored like 12 points. It was like, what? Where's our defense? Kyrie Irving, couldn't guard the perimeter yesterday, which was concerning too. So they West Coast trip now. You got 4 in the West Coast. You got San Antonio tomorrow, Phoenix, Jazz, Warriors. 3 of those 4 games are very winnable. They really are, even without Kevin Durant. Go ahead, win those games, get back on track. And then you got 2 big games against the Warriors and the Sixers. Then you come home and play the Pistons. Kevin Durant missing time. They get some teams where they should be beating. And they should have beat the Thunder yesterday. The Knicks, the rest of the Nets schedule is not insane. It's not impossible. But if they keep missing open looks, it might look, the schedule might all of a sudden look impossible. They got Spurs, Suns, Jazz, Warriors, Sixers. All of those games are on the road. And then they'll come home for 3 games to end January against the Pistons, Knicks, and Lakers. Pistons aren't good. Knicks are, okay. But you feel good about their Lakers aren't very good. Sixers are good. Warriors are good. You feel good about your chances against the Spurs, Suns, Jazz. Go out and win these games. Keep your head above water. Nets have got to finish January. They've got to start playing better basketball without Kevin Durant, or else, again, they might drop 2-3 spots in the East. And at that point, you might look at it and say, you might turn around and all of a sudden the Nets, who were once a 2 seed, you almost turn around and they might be, 6 games out of the 1 spot as a 5 seed. So tomorrow's a big game for the Brooklyn Nets for sure. And Kyrie Irving has got to step up. He's not a 1. He's a very good 2. He's not a 1, though. And we've kind of all known that, but it's really showing now. This Net team, especially Joe Harris, he's got to be better as well. I mean, they got to start. I mean, these games where you're just missing open shots, it's so frustrating. And it's not like the Thunder yesterday were playing open. And that's, I guess, part of you might say, okay, they're missing open shots. So it's not as concerning because it's not like the Nets are just getting locked down. They're missing open shots. So if those shots start falling, they're probably going to win these games. But you also look at it and say, they're missing open shots. Like, that's concerning. You can look at it either way. I look at it the way that they're missing open looks. No matter who you're playing, if you can't make open shots, if you're missing wide open threes, I don't care if you're playing the worst team in the NBA like they are against the Spurs, who are one of the worst. You're not going to win. When you lost to the Thunder in your own building, it just can't happen. So the Nets are struggling here a little bit without Kevin Durant for sure. All right, as for the games tonight in the NBA, you got today actually, they got games all throughout the day. You got the Celtics, Hornets, Pacers, Bucks, Cavs, Pelicans, Knicks, Raptors at MSG, Warriors, Wizards, Heat, Hawks, Jazz, Timberwolves, Suns, Grizzlies, and the Rockets, Lakers. As for the hockey games on today, you got a lot of games. We got some afternoon games. Flyers, Bruins, Panthers, Sabres, Avalanche, Red Wings, Devils, Sharks, Lightning, Kraken, Golden Knights, Stars, Ducks, Penguins, Flames, Predators, and the Blues, Senators. Islanders will host the Capitals tonight, and the Rangers will visit the Blue Jackets on the road in Columbus tonight as well. As I mentioned, Knicks host the Raptors 3 Eastern matinee game today at MSG. And good basketball game, 2:30 Eastern on Fox. You got Purdue and Michigan State, so stay tuned for that. Should be a pretty solid game there. Matinee game as well today. And obviously tonight, Cowboys, Bucks, 8:15 Eastern, ABC, ESPN. Big game for both those teams. A lot on the line. It's only a wild card game, but a lot on the line in terms of both teams' futures. You assume that Jerry Jones is in a position where he's going to want his team, to at least get to the NFC Championship game, make a deep playoff run. If not, what is Mike McCarthy's future? Does Sean Payton come in? Does Jerry Jones give everything to Sean Payton? What will it take for McCarthy? If McCarthy loses tonight, is that it for him? Again, for any other organization, if you had back-to-back 12-win season and got your team to the playoffs, even if you had 2 early wild card exits, you wouldn't be on the hot seat. But Cowboys, it seems every year the coach is on the hot seat, no matter what happens. Because Jerry Jones wants to win, especially as he's again up there in age. He wants to get another, which the Cowboys haven't done in a very long time. And for the Bucks, it's a lot of questions there too. No matter what, there's going to be questions because Brady's going to be a free agent at the end of this year. They can go on and win a Super Bowl. What's Brady's future? We'll see. So, if Brady loses, Brady very well could be playing his last game in the NFL and his last game with the Bucks tonight. You've heard the Raiders are interested in him. You've heard some rumors that the Dolphins, if he wanted to go to Miami, which was a possibility last season. I don't think so. I think if Tua can come back from the concussions, then I would assume he's probably their future. I don't think they're going to get Brady. Or does Brady flat out retire? And what is Todd Bowles' future too? Because I'll tell you this, Todd Bowles is not a very good coach. He's a very good defensive coordinator, not a good coach. Similar to Kyrie Irving. He's a very good 2, not a good 1. Todd Bowles, not a good head coach, very good defensive coordinator. If they lose tonight, is he back? Does Brady want him back? If Brady's gone, do they bring Bowles back? Do they blow it up and start a rebuild? There's so many different things that could happen tonight. Big game for both these teams. Whatever happens, one team is going to enter the offseason tonight with some questions. Whether it's head coaching for Cowboys or whether it's the quarterback and the coach for the Buccaneers. It'll be interesting. So looking forward to the game tonight. Cowboys, Bucks, Dak, Brady, McCarthy, Bowles. Should be a lot of fun to close out Wild Card Weekend. So as always, hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy the game tonight, and thanks for watching.